Mr. Gambetti told me he would give me back my letter if I would promise to steal a certain document from my father's wall safe.
What does your father do?
He's the janitor in Browning's Bank in Clearwater Street.
Browning's doesn't have a bank in Clearwater Street.
Poor Papa. I wonder if he knows.
What does your father do, Miss Hill?
How did you know so quickly that Browning's doesn't have a Clearwater branch?
I assumed you were lying. What does your father do, Miss Hill?
One of these days you're going to assume a broken ass, Mr. Holmes. Hello.
Hi.
I am Rob Vincent.
I am Gila Drazen.
And this is episode 207 of Modern Technology Watches.
207. If we hold to 13 episode seasons, that means we're more than halfway through our second season.
Yes, indeed.
Look at us go. We are a married couple of film geeks. We are married to one another. And we like to take the opportunity to share movies with the other that we may not have seen.
That is what we're doing here.
That is true. And even though you chose the movie for episodes 201, 203, and 206.
Well, that was a tangent. That was a side project.
A mini-series in our series.
Yes, a mini-series, a series within the series that we did with our friends at the Dork Web, who will be back for another series, which we are now planning.
Ooh!
We will not yet say what that series is.
Okay, so I guess the last one I picked before the last Back to the Future episode. Yes. So it's your pick?
It is my pick.
It's your pick.
And I'm going to get up and retrieve my pick.
Okay.
From the shelf.
All right.
Extemporize.
I will continue looking over into this corner because the goal is to be surprised. So I'm looking away from the area where the shelf is, and I'm looking... We have a lot of pillows in this apartment. There's just pillows all over our couch, which I will never really understand. And honey, please feel free to cut any of this. Nobody gives a shit how many pillows we have on our couch.
I mean, you can't be dropping personal info like that. People don't need to know about our personal and private lives.
No, it's true. I mean, we clearly play it very, very close to the chest here. Nobody knows anything about our personal and private lives.
So,
yes,
I am back.
You are back.
And I have a disc in my hand.
You have a disc in your hand.
And I'm going to hand you this disc.
Hand me the disc. Oh my. Okay, you have handed me The Adventure of Sherlock Holmes' Smarter Brother. Now, not looking any further, just seeing that it says Gene Wilder, Madeline Kahn, and Marty Feldman co-starring Dom DeLuise, I'm going to guess this is a Mel Brooks movie.
That would be a fair guess. It's wrong, but it's a fair guess.
How is it wrong? How is it wrong? 'Cause Gene... Aha. Got it.
Explain for our friends.
Oh, I'm sorry. Would you like me to just read the back here? 'Cause everything will become clear.
Yes.
Okay. Leave it to legendary funny man Gene Wilder, Blazing Saddles, to write, direct, and star in an uproarious Sherlock Holmes mystery film spoof that goes far beyond the scope of elementary comedies. After spending decades living in the shadow of his more famous and successful sibling, consulting detective Sigerson Holmes is called upon to help solve a crucial case that leads him on a hilarious trail of false identities, stolen documents, secret codes, and exposed backsides. Featuring an outrageous ensemble cast that includes Madeline Kahn as the seductive singer, Marty Feldman as Holmes' bug-eyed assistant, because, typecasting, and Dom DeLuise as an eccentric opera star turned blackmailer, this fun-filled caper packs a slew of clues and loads of laughs, which the New York Times called a charming slapstick comedy. Co-starring Leo McKern, Roy Kinnear, and John Le Mesurier. Mesurier.
John.
John Le M. Well.
So.
Yes.
The last one I picked was A New Leaf. We're still in the 70s.
We're still in the 70s. We're still very firmly in the realm of comedy.
We are.
I mean, I'm guessing.
I mean, again, that's a fair guess. Based on what we've read and who we know is in this.
What we've read and who we know is in this.
And I will tell you, this was made in 1975. Mm-hmm. I know that you hadn't seen this before.
I have not seen this before.
And I know I've wanted to show this to you. This is one I've liked since I was a kid. In the greater Sherlock Holmes sort of sphere, where does that sit with you?
Well, okay. So probably my greatest, Sherlock Holmes experience has been The Great Mouse Detective.
Okay.
Or Basil of Baker Street.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm. Never been a huge Sherlock Holmes person. And I'm also curious to see how Gene Wilder did as a writer-director.
Mm-hmm.
Although given the fact that he didn't do a lot after this, I'm assuming this was an interesting experiment that might have been more, let's say, chalked up to experience.
Well, I will say nothing about that. So, I'm excited to show this to you.
I'm excited to watch it with you.
So, I think what we will do is we will play a little music.
Turn it over to our friend Torley.
We will turn it over to the wonderful Torley. And we will be back after watching The Adventure of Sherlock Holmes' Smarter Brother.
1975's The Adventure of Sherlock Holmes' Smarter Brother.
Excellent.
Fantastic.
Hey, Gila.
Hey, Rob.
Are we back?
I think we're back.
We have watched 1975's The Adventure of Sherlock Holmes' Smarter Brother.
We indeed have watched the singular adventure of Sherlock Holmes' Smarter Brother.
And the impression I got was that it didn't really rock your world so hard.
You would not be incorrect in that assumption, and I have to tell you, there have been episodes where, like, we've been watching the movie, and I'm like, is this recording gonna risk our marriage? Before we go there, though,
all right,
tell me how you met this movie.
I met this movie, I think my mom knew this movie, and we got it out of the library at one point on VHS, because you used to be able to do such things. And it was one of the ones that we kept getting out. Like, every so often we would just throw that on our stack at the library because Mom loved it. I loved it. I think my sister also dug it. And we were a bunch of, like, fans of Mel Brooks and all his regulars, like Gene Wilder, like Madeline Kahn, like Don DeLuise, and
Marty Feldman.
Marty Feldman, of course. And, this was more of them. And also, I'd been something of a Sherlock Holmes reader and enjoyer of some other Sherlock movies and stuff. So not quite like a hardcore Holmesian, as the fandom is, I think, called. But I dig Sherlock Holmes stuff, so I liked that end of this too.
Okay. So you watched it a lot as a kid.
Mm-hmm.
How does it hold up as an adult?
That's interesting, because I knew I wanted to show you this movie, and I got this Blu-ray, I want to say maybe 4 weeks ago, and it's the first time I've seen it in a very long time. At least 20 some odd years. And you go back and you watch a lot of the Mel Brooks stuff,
mm-hmm.
and it's really tight, and it holds up really well for the most part.
Mm-hmm.
This is not as tight. It's very obviously, like, this wasn't one of Mel's, and it was Gene Wilder's first time directing. I don't think it's as cohesive a film as I remember, but I still like all the little set pieces and things that the writing is kind of an excuse for to happen.
The thing that it was really making me think of, it was really making me think of two things. But the first thing it was making me think of was making a family recipe for the first time.
Mm-hmm.
And you've watched your grandparent make it. And you've watched your parent make it. You've eaten it a million times. You know what it's supposed to taste like. You know what goes into it. You know how to make it. And then you make it yourself and it, like, doesn't taste quite right. So Gene Wilder had written what felt like a Mel Brooks movie. What could have been a Mel Brooks movie. All the ingredients were there. It's just when Gene Wilder tries to make a Mel Brooks movie, it's not Mel Brooks making a Mel Brooks movie. It doesn't, it's the recipe basics are there, but it doesn't come together in quite the same way.
I could see that.
Right? So I think that's a piece of it. I think you could see where it was trying to go. You could see what it was trying to do. It also, okay, so that was one thing that made me think of. The other was a play that I tried to write in the first grade.
You tried to write a play in the first grade?
I tried to write a play in the first grade. Oh, a skit. I called it a play because I was 6 and, I don't remember what it was about. I can tell you I remember one line of dialogue, which I think just epitomizes what I was trying to accomplish. And the line was, "Everyone please welcome Gila, the Queen of Omaha." So, I'm not proud of that. It was also the last time I tried to write a play. Thank you so much.
Everyone please welcome Gila, the Queen of Omaha.
Uh-huh.
That's adorable.
Well, thank you. But it also kind of felt like that was sort of what Gene Wilder was trying to do. He was like, I'm going to take everything I like and everything I want to do and put it together in one place. So like, hey, I like to sing. There's going to be singing. I like to dance. There's going to be dancing. I know how to fence. There's going to be fencing. Mm-hmm. Whatever it was, he's like, I'm writing this for myself. I can do whatever I want to do. Mm-hmm. All hail Gila, Queen of Omaha. The difference is, I was 6.
Wow. Major shade thrown at beloved Gene Wilder.
The late and lamented Gene Wilder, but yeah. I'm gonna make myself the romantic hero, the action hero, the singing and dancing hero. The comedic hero.
You know.
But I was 6. And then it occurred to me that, you couldn't write a play where everyone was, standing around saying how great you were. Like, other people needed shit to do. It was a lesson I learned, again, at age 6. And so I think that was part of the issue I had with it, was a lot of it was like, I'm going to get all my friends together and we're going to have a lot of fun. Mm-hmm. Like, that was very clear. It was clear how much fun they were all having. Mm-hmm. And it was clear, that was almost a rep company. It was all these people who had done Mel Brooks movies together before, sometimes several Mel Brooks movies together before. Mm-hmm. And it was like, we're just going to do everything we like to have. We're going to do it together. Mm-hmm. But just okay, so it reminded me of one other thing.
Yes.
Okay. There was a educational TV show that was on PBS when we were kids.
Yeah.
And it was made by Nebraska Public Television, and I don't know how widely it was distributed around the country, but it was called Once Upon a Time. And it was one of those shows where the theme song really told the whole story of the show. And basically, a witch saw a librarian read a story, and the witch decided she wanted, all the stories. So she kidnapped the librarian so she would have all the stories.
Like you do.
Like you do. Then took place a curious chase through meadow, tree, and flower. Then they finally ended up right at the witch's tower. And so, Marian the librarian, a prisoner she'll stay, until the witch gets happy and lets Marian go away. And then, the thing that would happen was, there was a machine in the witch's castle.
Okay.
And there was, a funnel on one end and a crank and a box. Whatever the story was going to be that day, you'd take the things that made up that story, put them in the funnel, she'd turn the crank, and out would pop the book. So, for example, if you took, a yellow hat and a stuffed monkey and, I don't know, a balloon, and turn the crank, out comes Curious George Goes to the Circus. It was something like that. So this was Gene Wilder took music hall music and a fencing sword and and a Sherlock Holmes book, turned the crank, and out came this movie.
Yeah, I think that's also how the 50 Shades of Grey series was written.
Yeah, that sounds about right, yeah.
But
there's a little more crank turning involved there. Hey-yo!
Family show.
It's not a family show, honey. We have... I don't have to tell you. You're the one who's been putting, the explicit content warning on every single episode.
We are family, and this is our show.
Yes, we are family, and this is our show. We are family. Daba 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 da dee.
Thank you, Gene Hackman.
It was fun. Was it my favorite thing I've ever seen? No. Did I want to jump out of our window instead of watching it? No.
I think I put it this way after we switched off the movie. We love Gene Wilder. We love Madeline Kahn. We love Marty Feldman. There is a finite amount of work by those people available to humanity. And so now you've seen some that you hadn't before.
Yes, and that's never a bad thing. Mm-hmm. I mean, the only thing that would have been more perfect would have been if she'd been able to sing the Crumbly Crackers jingle, but given the fact that that episode of Reading Rainbow didn't happen for another 9 years after this, that would have been just, miraculous and weird.
Okay. But you don't want to stab me over this one.
I don't want to stab you over this one. I've never wanted to stab you over any of them, technically.
There's actually a pretty long cast on this wiki article, and I'm going to skip a bunch of them because a bunch of these are totally bit parts.
Okay.
John Le Mesurier as Lord Redcliffe, the Foreign Secretary. Or John Le Mesurier? John Le Mesurier.
Le Mesurier. Le Mesurier.
Le Mesurier. Le Mesurier?
Le Mesurier.
That's the IPA on his wiki article, but John Le Mesurier. All right. Yes, he was Lord Radcliffe, whose document was the MacGuffin for the whole thing.
Right. And he was the one who at the beginning was rehearsing what he was going to say to the Queen, and then the words all got jumbled up.
Yes, and he ended up making a sex joke to the Queen.
And all it was missing was the rim shot.
Mm-hmm. Mel Brooks.
Mel Brooks.
As the voice of the lion victim. Uncredited. When Moriarty has 2 doors, and one he knocks on and there's a woman's voice behind it, and the other one he knocks on and there's a lion's roar.
Right, so it's the Lady and the Tiger.
It's the Lady and the Tiger. The guy who's screaming because the lion's tearing him apart is Mel Brooks.
Huh.
Doing Gene a favor. Because he didn't want to be involved with this movie, like he didn't want to do it as a Mel Brooks movie, but he just...
Oh, right, because Gene wrote it and said to him, would you direct this? And he said, I don't think I could direct something somebody else wrote.
Mm-hmm.
I read that. I was doing some research.
Ah, you've spent time in this wiki article as well.
Little tiny guy.
All right. Let's go to Douglas Wilmer as Sherlock Holmes, who was a Sherlock Holmes. He's one of the canonical ones.
Really?
Yeah, he played Sherlock Holmes on a 1965 TV series, which was called, wait for it, Sherlock Holmes.
No.
Yes.
So each particular episode was an adventure of Sherlock Holmes.
Pretty much.
Cool.
And so that was a nice little Easter egg that he was the Holmes in this.
So, yeah, something that I read in everything I was reading about this is that, like, Gene Wilder was enough of a Sherlock Holmes dork that this was just full of Sherlock Holmes in-jokes.
Yeah, little references and Easter eggs.
So many Easter eggs, it looked like the White House lawn. I don't know anything about Easter eggs. Like, my only frame of reference is the White House Easter egg roll.
You've got a shelf full of DVDs telling me you don't know from Easter eggs.
Oh, man.
Roy Kinnear as Finney, Moriarty's assistant.
So I saw him come on screen and I said, hey, that dude's in A Funny Thing Happened on the Way to the Forum.
Mm-hmm.
For about 30 seconds.
Yep.
He died young, Roy Kinnear.
He did, yeah.
He was like 54.
He was 1934 to 1988. He was 54.
Booyakasha.
Indeed. And he was also in Willy Wonka with Gene Wilder 4 years earlier.
Yes.
As Veruca Salt's dad.
As Veruca Salt's dad. And I remember watching him in Willy Wonka because I had seen... Is Charlie in the Chocolate Factory or Willy Wonka in the Chocolate Factory?
I think the 70s movie is Willy Wonka. The bad Johnny Depp movie is Charlie.
And the book is Charlie. So, I saw Willy Wonka many, many years after I saw A Funny Thing Happen on the Way to the Forum for the first time.
Mm-hmm.
What that says about my childhood, I leave you to figure out on your own. Draw your own conclusions. But I was like, Mr. Salt looks really familiar. And then I realized why.
Because he was from Forum.
Because he was from Forum. But I was like, he looked really familiar, but I couldn't place him.
Mm-hmm.
And then I realized why.
Why?
Because in A Funny Thing Happened on the Way to the Forum, he's in for like one scene where he is the gladiator instructor at the Forum.
Yes.
He's, teaching the gladiators how to hit people with a mace.
Yes.
So there's a line of slaves that keep coming in, hitting them up, hit it.
Yeah.
And he's like, you need to use a smoother motion. You're doing well. But like he was wearing like a tunic and a thing. And, in Willy Wonka, he was wearing like, clothing.
Yep.
That's why I didn't recognize him, because he had clothes on.
Okay. Leo McKern as Professor Moriarty.
Uh-huh.
Now, and I suspect a lot of people I know, chiefly know Leo McKern as one of the handful of actors to play number 2 in The Prisoner. He was arguably the most iconic one. He was that type. He had that voice, almost Brian Blessedy, but not quite, and he would just throw himself entirely into what he was doing. The Moriarty in this movie was also a major spoof because Moriarty was, in the books, was a genius and, a professor. And so in this one, he's a professor, but he can't do math. He keeps screwing up, simple math.
Right. That scene was very funny.
Yes. Dom DeLuise as Eduardo Gambetti.
Eduardo Gambetti.
Yes.
He was fun.
Mm-hmm.
This has less to do with Dom DeLuise and more to do with the script, but oh my god, the words of that opera.
Yeah.
We'll get there. Obviously, we'll get there, but But
yeah, the gag is that he translated a Verdi opera into English, and it's a rotten translation.
It's mostly about food.
Yeah. but Dom DeLuise, I mean, you can never watch Dom DeLuise on screen in something like this and think that guy's not having a good time.
It's funny because he was almost it was very difficult to lampoon Dom DeLuise because he was just always so full out in everything. Do you remember there was a Saturday Night Live sketch around when Johnny Carson was retiring? Dana Carvey as Johnny and is remembering old stuff, and they did a play on the Tomahawk incident. Mm-hmm. From the Tomahawk incident.
Yes.
Right. So they did a gloss on that. Chris Farley is Dom DeLuise. I don't remember who else was there, but the upshot was that Dom DeLuise laughed so hard he peed his pants. Mm-hmm. And they really put a lot of water into whatever they were using to wet Farley's pants because they were wet down to the ankles, and he's just wearing this beret and just guffawing for all he's worth. And it's weird that that's my canonical vision of Dom DeLuise, but it totally is. And kind of in the same way that we were talking about Jack Weston in the A New Leaf episode, that he just goes for it. Mm-hmm. So does Dom DeLuise, just in more of a funny way.
Yeah.
Whereas Jack Weston was kind of at a slow burn to get angry. Mm-hmm. Dom DeLuise is just we're gonna have fun. Mm-hmm. We're gonna have fun.
Yeah. Yeah, and the character is either laughing or whimpering like a baby because he's scared, and nothing in between. It's just 10 on this end, 10 on that end.
Yeah, listeners, if anybody can come up with a performance when Dom DeLuise was subtle, I would love to hear about it.
Actually, he was in a movie called Fatso, which I saw as a kid, and it was kind of what it sounds like, but it was actually I remember him having some really tender moments in that. I'll have to see if that's available and if that holds up at all, because God only knows. I was maybe 9 when I last saw it. It was it wasn't just a lol fat people sort of comedy. It was about Dom DeLuise's character and his struggle with that sort of thing.
Okay, I mean that's reassuring because with a name like that, I could see it just being a lol fat people.
Yeah.
Lol what fat people?
No, I remember it getting dark. But Dom DeLuise, one of my tribe, always appreciate seeing him on screen. Marty Feldman as Sergeant Orville Stanley Sacker.
Marty Feldman. Talking about Marty Feldman, it seems like a really good time to remind everyone that September, when we are recording and probably releasing this episode, is Thyroid Cancer Awareness Month. Mm-hmm. And Marty Feldman always makes me think back fondly on my thyroid.
May it rest.
May it rest. On the nice farm upstate where it's playing with my tonsils and your tonsils and probably some old pets. Marty Feldman, I think, for all of the Gene Wilder was I'm going to do every single thing I know how to do. Marty Feldman was just carrying so much of this movie. Mm-hmm. And also I just enjoyed the photographic hearing thing that he had. It was very funny.
Yeah, how would you explain the gimmick for those who are not watching this movie but are listening to us spoil it?
So, instead of describing a moment or anything, he can recreate the sound of any particular moment. He, hits himself in the head to start the recording.
Yeah.
Basically. But then he can do it. So he can do voices and sing and stuff, and it's, It's funny.
He's basically a human tape recorder.
He is basically a human tape recorder.
In 1975 context, he would have been a human tape recorder.
Yes.
Also, while we're talking about Marty Feldman, you've got to go online and see if you can search out the story that Sergio Aragones tells, because Marty Feldman died of a heart attack in Mexico City after doing an appearance, and Sergio met him. Sergio Aragones, a prominent Mad Magazine cartoonist, did Gru the Wanderer, which was a comic book, and he drew the little cartoons in the margins of Mad Magazine, as well as a Mad Look at So-and-So. But Sergio was in Mexico City at that moment and was really excited to meet Marty Feldman. And there's this story that Sergio tells of him meeting Marty Feldman and how he thinks it freaked Marty Feldman out so much that Sergio ultimately is at fault for killing him. I gotta see if I can find this, and if it's out there, I'll link it in the show notes. Sergio Aragones tells a hilarious and possibly sad story of how he killed Marty Feldman.
His excitement killed Marty Feldman.
Yes. His fanboying, basically.
Wow. Okay, then.
But yes, Marty Feldman.
Marty Feldman.
And his eyes. Madeline Kahn as Jenny Hill, initially using the alias Bessie Bellwood, also nicknamed Miss Liar.
Okay, I think that's a bit of a reach. Wikipedians.
Yeah.
Madeline Kahn. What can't you say about Madeline Kahn?
I love Madeline Kahn so much. Flames on the side of my face. Love Madeline Kahn. How can you not?
I loved Madeline Kahn before I knew who Madeline Kahn was. Because, B and Mr. Jones.
Yes.
Just a bit of a tangent here. Not that we ever need to introduce those on this program. We both really loved Reading Rainbow growing up. And in fact, Reading Rainbow was one of the first things that we bonded over when we first started talking. And one of the coolest things about Reading Rainbow, especially when we were little kids.
This is 1980s Reading Rainbow.
Early 1980s Reading Rainbow. Was that they would get, really famous people to come in and read the books.
Yeah. Every episode would have a children's book read by a celebrity out loud while they show the book's artwork, scrolling back and forth with the story.
And we have now it's a DVD because we transferred it. But when I was in college, I recorded some of my favorite episodes of Reading Rainbow off of PBS Afternoon Kids TV. Whatever it says about me that I have favorite episodes of Reading Rainbow. But the books were read by James Earl Jones and Isabel Sanford and Ruby Dee and Madeline Kahn. And Madeline Kahn read a book called Bee and Mr. Jones. Because Bee and Mr. Jones is about a girl in kindergarten. Her name is Bee Jones, and her father, Mr. Jones. And they complain that they're bored. He's bored with his job in advertising. She's bored with being a kindergartner. So they switch places.
Like you do.
It's like you do. And Bee becomes an advertising executive. And she comes up with a jingle that Madeline Kahn sang because Madeline Kahn was reading the book. Rob, would you favor us with the jingle?
Munchy, crunchy, my dear snackers, you will love our crumbly crackers.
And that is when I fell in love with Madeline Kahn. Before I had seen her do anything else. Even before I had seen her balancing a duck on her head. And even before I had seen her sing After Me with Grover. Another one of the ways I fell in love with Madeline Kahn.
Yeah. Yeah, no, she was in a ton of stuff I loved as a kid. The Mel Brooks stuff, the Sesame Street appearances, the movie Clue. Oh my God. Which we will not cover on this program in all likelihood because we've both seen it.
Yes, we have.
And, but it is wonderful and you should watch it. Madeline Kahn.
Madeline Kahn.
She's another one I'll watch in anything. And she is also, I think, the reason that I got the idea to show you this movie, because some time ago, we were watching a recording of a very early episode of Saturday Night Live that she had hosted.
Yes.
And it was while watching that I was thinking about stuff that I'd seen her in that you might not have. This was at the top of my brain, so I started planning and scheming and ordering the blurry disc.
Well done, you.
Yes.
Okay, so that's the cast. We don't have to talk about anybody else, right?
Gene Wilder as Sigerson Holmes.
Okay. Do we find out how he came up with that name?
There was in the Sherlock Holmes books. He had a brother Mycroft,
right?
but he did not have a brother Sigerson.
And apparently there's a new Sherlock Holmes series, a new Holmes series coming out where, like, there's a sister, where Millie Bobby Brown is playing their little sister.
Ugh. I mean, it's been done. The Benedict Cumberbatch version of Sherlock Holmes in, I think, the last season when things went really off the rails and it wasn't very good, but the whole plot involved his sister. But yeah, Gene Wilder as Sigerson Holmes. So, the plot is actually pretty detailed here on Wiki, but I think we can get through it pretty quickly.
Okay.
It's plot.
It's plot.
This is the plot section from the Wikipedia article for The Adventure of Sherlock Holmes' Smarter Brother.
Okay.
Plot.
In
1891, Foreign Secretary Lord Redcliffe haphazardly receives a document with unknown contents from Queen Victoria. The document is stolen from his safe later that night.
Uh-huh.
Your confidence being inside of your majesty is the greatest joy I've ever known. Sherlock Holmes and Dr. Watson discuss the case. I love that bit with the note cards, where Sherlock is just showing Watson cards on his lap. Ugly 6'3" murderer at keyhole. To which Watson responds, "Holy Jesus Christ!" And the next card he just calmly flips over. Act normally. Deciding to lie low for a while, Holmes informs Watson that he will delegate cases to his younger brother, Sigerson, Gene Wilder, who has toiled in his brother's shadow without credit for decades. At a train station, and dressing in drag to avoid a would-be assassin, Sherlock passes the message to Scotland Yard Records clerk Orville Sacker, Marty Feldman, a man with auditory eidetic memory who happens to be a fan of Sigerson's work. Arriving at Sigerson's flat, Sacker finds him practicing his fencing and swordplay.
With, like, a machine he had put together for that purpose.
Yeah, like a fencing robot that's powered by an old-timey bicycle.
Mm-hmm. And there were pulleys and straps and it was a whole thing.
And very obviously sped up film.
Yeah, and then I think reversed film at one point.
Yeah. I think it's the first of many things that this movie does that, you know, it seems to have no real call to do or, you know, excuse for, but it's trying to get by with the rule of funny. Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't.
I think this bit would have worked had it been, like, half as long.
Mm-hmm.
This was a lot. And again, once I found out that, like, Gene Wilder was trained in fencing, it made a lot more sense.
Well, you know, if you have weird talents and you get your chance to have your own movie and you want to put them in there, I understand that. The thing about this movie, like, this is a big overarching thing. I find it very difficult to write for myself. I'm good at writing comedy. I've done, you know, screenwriting and stuff like that for other characters. I'm, like, really self-conscious about doing stuff like, you know, going all Tommy Wiseau on it or like, just doing the thing that basically Rob the King of Long Island. Like, I don't want to come out with a show that's just basically about how awesome I am and have everyone around me telling me I'm awesome.
Right. Because you're not 6.
I'm not 6. But I've also, like, I'm really self-conscious about that. And even in the scripted podcast, which we do on this network, which I'm working on the second episode of.
Yay!
One of the characters is me, but fictional me.
Right.
And, you know, that's probably my least favorite character to write in that show. But I still have fun with it. I wouldn't do it if it weren't fun. But like, it's just so extra stressful. And I can see how that can go in a wrong direction and you come out with something that feels just vanity project-y.
Yeah. I mean, that was
a tangent.
But no, it's true. I think ultimately the thing that I kept thinking the whole time we were watching this was, oh my God, this is such a vanity project that, like, you could put a sink on it. Even 2 sinks. Matching sinks.
Yes. Sigerson expresses bitterness and resentment over being unable to replicate Sherlock's success, mocking his big brother as Sherlock Holmes. Arriving next is a woman claiming to be Bessie Bellwood, but Sigerson sees through her ruse almost immediately by stumping her with his knowledge of Bellwood's repertoire and the fact that Bellwood had died in 1879. Now, in this movie, she turns out to be Jenny Hill, posing as Bessie Bellwood, who died 12 years ago. In real life, there were music hall singers called Jenny Hill and Bessie Bellwood in England, but they lived at the same time, and they were both alive when this movie took place, and had nothing to do with anything. He just used the names.
Right. Clearly, he was like, I know this time period. I'm going to name these after real people.
I guess he was writing this before Wikipedia, so...
I mean, you know, when I wrote All Hail Gila, Queen of Omaha, all my friends were in the play, and they all had their real names. I don't even remember what it was called. It's the only line I remember.
Eventually, after some interrogation, it soon becomes clear that the woman is a habitual liar. She reveals herself to be Jenny Hill, a music hall singer who believes she's being blackmailed by opera singer Eduardo Gambetti over a lewd letter she sent him. The assassin finds out about Hill's and Sigerson's meeting and reports it to an obviously math-challenged Professor Moriarty. This skips over the Kangaroo Hop.
Oh, it skips over the Kangaroo Hop.
How did you feel about the Kangaroo Hop?
How did I feel about the Kangaroo Hop? Well, you know, if you're going to make a musical, make a musical.
Mm-hmm.
If you want to have music in your movie, have music in your movie.
Mm-hmm.
I cannot think of any circumstance, literally any circumstance, where something like that would happen. And we both like to sing.
Mm-hmm.
We like to dance.
Yeah.
We like to sing and we like to dance together.
Mm-hmm.
I cannot think of any circumstance where we would break into something like that. And, like, our lives are weird. Our life is weird.
Fair enough.
Not Kangaroo Hop weird. And then, of course, I found out that that's, like, a real song.
Mm-hmm.
It's a real music hall song.
Yeah.
But, you know, this was like, hey, I can fence, and I can sing, and I can dance, and I know all this music hall minutia.
Mm-hmm.
All hail Gila, Queen of Omaha.
Yeah, when I was a kid watching this, the Kangaroo Hop was the funniest thing.
Oh, I'm sure.
As an adult watching this, except I still find the song catchy as hell.
I mean, the song is catchy as hell, but, like, the hopping, and they were just like, okay, we're on board with this now.
Mm-hmm.
And, I mean, it makes a certain amount of narrative sense that they both know it, because it was popular at the time.
Also, they'd established this running thing where Sigerson would sing the beginning of something, and Jenny would just jump in and have to sing the rest of it.
Yeah. Because Gene Wilder knew musical music.
Yeah. Marty Feldman joins in.
And Marty Feldman joins in.
He's jumping up and down with his hat going up and down, and it's great.
His eyes are going two opposite directions. It's kind of amazing.
Mm-hmm. Sigerson attends one of Hill's performances and saves her from another would-be assassin by injecting himself into the play from the audience and directing Hill through a musical number.
Okay, now here's a question.
Yes.
The sandbag that sprung a leak.
Mm-hmm.
So, like, there was a priest who kept throwing sand behind him?
That was Sherlock, in disguise. A running gag throughout this movie is that all through Sigerson's adventure, Sherlock is helping, but in disguise, so Sigerson won't think he's being helped by his brother he hates.
See, I didn't put that together till right now when you told me.
I'm sorry, can you say that toward the mic?
I didn't put that together until right now when you told me. I missed it. I was not paying enough attention to notice that was Sherlock Holmes, because I thought Sherlock Holmes was in Paris.
Sherlock Holmes never went to Paris. He kept turning up through this movie. Sherlock was sitting in the front row, and he saw the sand falling from the sandbag, so he grabbed a pinch of it and threw it over his shoulder to Sigerson sitting right behind him, in hopes that Sigerson would feel the sand and look up and notice the sandbag. And he didn't. So Sherlock had to grab bigger and bigger handfuls of the sand and, like, pelt him in the face with it before he realized and took the initiative and did what he did.
Okay. Oh, see, okay. I get it. I just thought it was some random dude who was, like, helping the plot.
I mean, the hint is they always show the pipe.
Yes. Okay. I guess I missed it then.
I mean, we could watch the movie again if you want to.
Oh, it's late. It's, oh man, no.
He then saves her again when two hansom cabs accost her on her way home.
I didn't think they were that nice looking.
Good
night, everybody.
That's our show. Like, comment, and subscribe. So the bit with the hansom cabs and the fight in the street was more of Gene Wilder going, like, I can do action hero stuff.
Mm-hmm.
But then there was shtick that I thought was really funny. Like, I loved the thing with the giant glove from the glove store.
Yes.
And the giant shoe
boot
from the shoe store.
Yes. That was cute.
Yes.
The thing it reminded me of, the set piece it most reminded me of in the whole entire world was the bit in Singing in the Rain, where Don Lockwood has gotten mobbed by all the fans, so he jumps on top of the streetcar and has to run a couple of blocks on top of the streetcar until he plops down into Kathy Sullivan's car.
Yes.
That's the thing it reminded me of.
I could see that.
Except this one had horses.
The trauma prompts Hill to temporarily stop cooperating in the case. Sigerson, dismayed that Sherlock got credit for saving Hill in the newspaper, is invited the next day to her dressing room, where he uses the power of seduction to both make love to her and find out further details.
Okay, that was creepy as fuck.
This scene is much creepier watching it as an adult. For some reason, Gene Wilder thought it was a good idea to establish that this character trusts you more the more you sexually stimulate her. In this movie that he was the star of, that she was the love interest in.
That he wrote.
He wrote.
I get it. I can't imagine...
And I love Gene Wilder.
I can't imagine being a person in the world and not having a crush on Madeline Kahn
Mm-hmm.
in some way.
Right.
So, like, you write yourself a scene where you get to feel her up.
Mm-hmm.
I get it. But there's fanfic that you write for yourself and don't share with anybody. Like, hide under your mattress.
Mm-hmm.
And then there's, major motion picture.
And also the way this wiki article puts it, he uses the power of seduction.
No, he doesn't. He, mashes his hand into her boob.
Mm-hmm.
Repeatedly.
And then, takes off his clothes bit by bit, and she gets more and more excited. And it does not read well now.
Mm-mm. Mm-mm.
She reveals that she stole the document from Redcliffe's safe and claims that Redcliffe is her father. When Sigerson meets with Redcliffe, he learns that Hill is not Redcliffe's daughter, but his fiancée, and that Hill had lied to Sigerson again.
Now, okay, we had read something earlier that said that Jenny was a habitual liar.
Yes.
Do we think that she is always a habitual liar, or is she just, so befuddled by this incident of her own creation
Mm-hmm.
that she just is trying to make herself sound better because this is... she sent the letter to Gambetti
Mm-hmm.
saying she wanted to see his winky.
His winkle.
His winkle, excuse me.
Yes.
And so Gambetti was blackmailing her.
Mm-hmm.
So it's that sort of thing where, you did a thing, and then everything you try to do to fix the thing keeps compounding the thing.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, she doesn't, I think, want to confront where she is in this, so she keeps lying, although, if you keep adding a lie to a problem, it only makes the problem worse. Would we say she's a habitual liar in her general life? I don't know.
I think you, in your head, have just written a deeper character than Gene Wilder did. Which also makes more sense than what comes up at this point in the movie, which is that in addition to being a famous music hall singer and a singer in an upcoming opera by Gambetti, which we'll get to, she's also Redcliffe's children's governess.
Uh-huh. Right. Jenny Hill had a hustle. Jenny Hill invented the gig economy. But the set piece where Sigerson discovered that Jenny was not his daughter, but the governess of his children and his fiancé,
mm-hmm.
and he fell off a roof.
Mm-hmm.
It was slapsticky. It was cute.
Yeah. You gotta have a bit of slapstick in a movie like this.
Mm-hmm.
Eventually, the trail leads to Gambetti, who has made a deal with Moriarty to sell him the document, which foreign powers have offered £50,000, Wiki helpfully adds £5.5 million today, to acquire. Moriarty pays, but the distrustful Gambetti proposes that he hand over the document during the debut of his opera, a botched translation of Giuseppe Verdi's Un ballo in maschera, which means the masked ball.
Ah, yes.
Or a masked ball.
Okay. Calling it a botched translation
mm-hmm.
does not do it justice.
Yeah.
In the movie Heartbreakers, it's kind of complicated how it happens, but Sigourney Weaver is pretending to be Russian.
Yes.
So, you knew this was going to come up eventually.
Yes.
So, Gene Hackman takes Sigourney Weaver, who's pretending to be Russian, to a Russian restaurant, and she gets called on to sing a song. Who will favor us with Korobushka? They stand up to leave, the spotlight hits Sigourney Weaver, and he says, "Oh, there isn't a Russian alive who doesn't know Korobushka." Of course she doesn't know it. She's not Russian. She's just faking it.
Mm-hmm.
So she gets up on stage, doesn't know the words at all, and starts reaching for the only Russian words she knows, which are the names of cities in the USSR.
Mm-hmm. And da.
And da. And the word Korobushka, because she knows what the song is called.
Mm-hmm.
Korobushka, da, da, da. Moscow, da, Leningrad, and Minsk. And then she realized, she can't keep doing this. It's very funny. But I digress. So the fact that, like, this opera was so poorly translated and half the words are just food.
Yes.
I got a kick out of that section.
Gambetti proposes that he hand over the document during the debut of his opera, a botched translation of Giuseppe Verdi's Un ballo in maschera, so that he has time to safely deposit the money. Sigerson and Sacker infiltrate the opera, which soon devolves into chaos.
We're going to drink some sexy wine.
Yeah. Why don't we all drink some very sexy wine?
Roy Kinnear cannot sing.
No.
Could not sing. May he rest.
Yeah. Gene Wilder can, but, like, the gag is...
Yeah, we know Gene Wilder can, because he proves it at great length through this entire film.
Yeah. But the gag is, which Wiki skips over, that how Gambetti will hand over the document to Moriarty is Moriarty will send one of his goons into the play, dressed as one of the actors, and will sing that line of the opera. And then Gambetti will know to hand the document over to the person who sang that. And Sigerson hears them plan this, so he shows up at the opera too, also dressed up, and so does Sacker. And instead of Roy Kinnear, who's there ready to do the line, he does it. And so Gambetti's like winking at him and going, okay, I'll hand you this document. But then Roy Kinnear pops out and goes, why don't we all drink some very sexy wine? And and this was something that my sister and I would do as kids. After watching this movie, we'd just like shout it from different ends of the house to each other. Why don't we all drink some very sexy wine? And then the other one would be, the goon. And why don't we all drink some very sexy wine? Like, we were easy to amuse as children.
You're still easy to amuse as adults.
This is true.
But no, I get it. And it was funny, and that line got repeated like 4 or 5 times.
Yeah. Finally, Roy Kinnear goes, why don't we all drink? And Gambetti's just, shut your mouth! Like, yeah.
Yeah.
I love the whole opera scene, and, I'm a sucker for that sort of thing. I love the Marx Brothers Night at the Opera, and, other movies that have done the trope of, like, here's a big production going on, here's a couple of people sabotaging it or screwing it up in some way. I'm too much of a theater kid not to love that.
No, absolutely. It's a lot of fun.
Sigerson and Moriarty confront each other backstage and are drawn into a sword fight that corners Sigerson on an outside ledge. At this point, Moriarty explains to Sigerson why he never lived up to his brother's fame. Sherlock was far better at seeing his enemies' moves 2 to 3 steps ahead of when they happen. Under threat of death, Sigerson agrees to hand over what Moriarty thinks is a document before Moriarty falls off the ledge, shaken by the chimes of Big Ben, and into the water below. The document turns out to be a decoy. Sigerson has left the real document to be found by Sherlock. The final scene is of Sigerson Holmes running through a park to attend Jenny Hill's wedding, but finds that she has not gone through with the ceremony, and instead is waiting for him on a park bench. The lovers reconcile and share in a celebratory dance, accompanied by a disguised Sherlock and Watson. The end.
The end.
All in all, I think we covered that you were not blown away by this movie.
I'm not blown away, but I don't consider it 90 minutes wasted.
So, would you call that a Firefly up? Or a Firefly down, or a Firefly sort of hanging out in the middle?
Why don't we call it like a Firefly north-northeast?
North-northeast.
North-northwest? Either way.
Okay. And, I do not dislike this movie. I now dislike certain elements of it. Like the weird rapey stuff.
There were parts of it when I was obviously, like, very clearly not looking at you. Because I was like, I'm sure that the way I'm feeling about this is on my face. And I know you loved this movie as a kid. I'm like, I didn't want to fuck it up for you.
No. Like, I'm never worried about that when I show you this stuff. Because especially in a case like this, when I haven't seen it in a while either. And so I'm curious as to how well it holds up.
Like, going back to the Tao of Steve. Like, there are moments when I felt my memories, like, rewriting themselves to sadness.
Oh. But like, this is not a contest, and I'm not like during the Tao of Steve, I wasn't looking at you going, how about now? You still like it now, huh? But
I also didn't want my opinions to interact with your enjoyment of the film.
I will say, this movie did not cost me money to acquire. I used reward points to get the blurry disc.
Even so.
But it was an interesting watch. I will still keep it, I think, in our collection. But I don't know if I'll go back and rewatch this as often as back in the day when we would get it out of the library repeatedly. I would say I'm kind of north, east, or west as well. And that's not a necessarily a bad thing or a good thing. It just is. That's
it's not a value judgment. It just is.
The Adventure of Sherlock Holmes' Smarter Brother.
The Adventure of Sherlock Holmes' Smarter Brother. And we sing this out with Kangaroo Hop, right?
And we sing it out with the Kangaroo Hop. So, thank you all out there for listening to another episode of Modern Technology Watches.
We are always happy to have you join us in our little movie club here. Rob, have there been any new developments in how people can talk to us?
There have. Actually, there have been a couple of developments at the Modern Technology Podcast Network. We would love for you to get in touch with us. You can email this podcast at watches@modern.technology. Or if you'd like to use a web form, if you don't want to write a fresh email, you can go to modern.technology/contact on the web. And there's a nice form you can use to email this or any other of our podcasts. There is also, we're trying out something new. It is a Modern Technology voicemail box.
Woohoo!
A listener voicemail box where you can talk to us with your voice thing, if you so desire. And you can do that by calling United States telephone number 1-929-399-8414. This is not a phone that rings anywhere, but it is a voicemail box. And once you're there, you can record a voicemail, and we will include those in future listener mailbags. So if you'd like to send a voicemail to us about this movie that we've just spoken about, or any other movie that we've spoken about on this program, you can leave us your voicemail at 1-929-399-8414. And we will consider all voicemails received for publishing in these here podcasts. The other development that there's been recently is we have a new podcast.
We have a new podcast.
At modern.technology. The Modern Technology Podcast Network is proud to introduce Modern Technology Knows Your Name.
My name?
Well, your name, yes. And my name. And a lot of people's names, because what this is a solo podcast by yours truly, which is taking a deep dive into the phenomenon of self-chosen names. You may know there's a story behind my name, there's a story behind my screen name, and on the first episode of Modern Technology Knows Your Name, I tell those stories, and also tell the stories of a bunch of people I know who have named themselves in some capacity. So I'm talking about nicknames, screen names, usernames, professional names, as well as formally, legally changed names in like a paperwork and government-issued ID sort of way. Formally or informally, long stories, short stories, I'm interested in all of them. It's a subject I've always been fascinated by, and I am very interested to hear the stories from those of you who have named yourself in some capacity. But even if you haven't, you might go to moderntechnology/name, that's moderntechnology/NAME, or search for Modern Technology Knows Your Name in your podcast directory of choice. We're in most of them now, I think. And check it out. It's a shorter program. I think the first one's 20-something minutes. Mm-hmm. Future episodes are already in production, and I'm really interested to see where it goes.
Lots of exciting things afoot at the Modern Technology Podcast Network. So please, feel free to be a part of it. Email us at watches@modern.technology. Find us on Twitter at MTPodcastNet, or pick up the phone and call us at 1-929-399-8414.
Absolutely. And you can also find that phone number and the other information on how to email us if you want at modern.technology/contact.
It's the reason.
It's the answer.
Everything happens. Contact. Let's make contact.
Ba-da-da.
Kitten. Trampoline. Oh boy. Okay.
Yes. You can also follow us on Twitter. You can find us on SoundCloud. You can find us on YouTube.
You could tie a note to a pigeon and send it around. It'll find us eventually. This is New York. Pigeons live here.
Anyway, for Modern Technology Watches, I am Rob Vincent.
I am Gila Drazen.
And we will see you in the future.
Someday we will see you at the movies.
You've been listening to episode 207 of Modern Technology Watches with Gila Drazen and Rob Vincent. Go to modern.technology on the web for more info on this show, our other work, and our social media opera. Our music is The Promise by Torley Wong, released Creative Commons Attribution Share Alike 3.0. Find more from Torley at torley.com. Thank you, Torley. Content from wikipedia.org is used under Creative Commons Attribution Share Alike 3.0. This podcast is released under Creative Commons Attribution Share Alike 4.0 and is a production of Joyful Firefly, LLC. Send us email at watches@modern.technology. And if you like us, tell somebody. Let's make contact.
3, 2, 1.
Contact.